The John Deere dealership that the Finch family ran for 76 years does not belong to them anymore. They started it in 1945 and passed it down through 3 generations. On June 1st, 2021, it stopped being theirs. The store did not close. A larger group called Atlantic Tractor absorbed Finch's locations in Westminster, in Hunt Valley, and in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and kept the same signs. The announcement buried the most important part. Atlantic Tractor was not local either. 4 years before, in 2017, an investment firm from Florida had bought control of it. If you have ever stood on a dealer lot with a loan approval in your pocket, about to sign for a compact tractor that costs somewhere between $15,000 and $40,000, this next part is about you. The name on that building is the name you trust. You drove past 2 other brands and an extra 40 minutes of highway to get there because of it. It is who you expect to call when the machine is down in April and the field will not wait. That same building is where your neighbor bought his, and his father before him. But the people who own that dealership, the ones who set the policy on what a machine sells for, on whether the parts counter bothers to stock your model, and on what an hour of shop time costs, may sit 2 levels above the name on the sign, in a company you have never heard of, in a state you have never driven through. This video traces who owns the John Deere dealers now. Not rumor, and not a hunch that something feels different. It traces the acquisition filings and the press releases these companies published about themselves, with real names and real dates. And it starts with a single number. By 2024, John Deere's dealer network across North America had been consolidated into just 82 ownership groups, and those 82 groups controlled 1,480 dealership locations between them. That figure comes from the Ag Equipment Intelligence Big Dealer Report, published in May of 2024. A big dealer in that report is a group running 5 or more farm equipment stores. So these are chains, sizable groups of storefronts, and Deere has more of them than any other color on the market. And 82 was not the number a few years before. In 2020, there were 96 of these big Deere groups. 2 years after that, 90. The year after, 86. Then 82. That is a drop of about 15% in 4 years, and it did not happen because stores were closing. The stores are all still open for business. Every one of those locations still turns on its lights every morning. What shrank was the number of separate owners standing behind them, and the same thinning ran across the whole industry. The report counted 206 big equipment dealers of every color in 2024, down from a record 214 just 2 years earlier. None of that thinning was random. It followed a plan, and the plan has a paper trail more than 20 years long. In 2002, John Deere introduced a plan for what its dealer network was supposed to become, and the company called that plan the Dealer of Tomorrow. The idea was that the small, single-store dealership, the kind of place the Finch family ran, was finished, and the future belonged to larger groups, 3 to 5 stores each, clustered in one region, doing more than $50 million in sales apiece. In a great many places, that strategy pointed toward continued dealer consolidation. So when a Florida investment firm buys an 11-store Deere group and announces that it plans to buy more, it is doing just what that strategy called for. The roll-up of your local dealer traced back to Deere's own plan for the network, and outside money showed up with the checkbook to run it faster than the manufacturer ever could on its own. Now go back to Atlantic Tractor, because Atlantic is the clearest look at how this works on the ground. Before it ever touched Finch Services, Atlantic was already an 11-store John Deere group. By its own account, it commanded close to half the market across Delaware, eastern Maryland, and southeastern Pennsylvania, and it had served mid-Atlantic farmers and homeowners for more than 80 years. It looked from the road like just the kind of big regional dealer Deere had been asking for. Then, in February of 2017, 2 firms from Florida stepped in. McCombie Group, a private investment firm, and its financial partner, Seamlev Investments, both based in Florida, acquired a majority interest in the whole operation. And they did not keep the plan quiet. In the trade press announcement, Atlantic was described as the platform for opportunistically acquiring other complementary industrial dealerships that can benefit from its scale, and the approach was called a long-term buy-and-hold strategy. McCombie's partner, Jay Lipsey, was blunt about the intent. "We remain willing and able," he said, "to entertain discussions with other dealership groups who might have an interest in exploring a sale or merger. Buy and hold gives it away. This was patient, long-term money, the kind that plans to hold and keep buying for years." Read that again. The plan, stated out loud in 2017, was to buy one dealer and then use that dealer to buy the next. It took 4 years. In April of 2021, Atlantic announced it was absorbing Finch Services, effective that June, taking over the family's stores in Westminster, in Hunt Valley, and in Hanover. Atlantic's chief executive, Mel Goldsmith, said the deal combined the employee bases and facilities of these two great legacy companies and would provide a seamless transition for our customers. Seamless is the point. You are not supposed to feel it happen. The name on the sign stayed local. The money behind it did not. And Atlantic is not the only one. The same pattern was running in other states, in the same window, with different firms behind it. In that very same month, February of 2017, up in Falconer, New York, an Atlanta investment firm called Argonne Capital Group did in a single move what took Atlantic 4 years. Argonne took the two John Deere dealers that served Western New York, Lakeland Equipment and Z&M Ag and Turf, and merged them into one company, Land Pro Equipment, with 12 locations across New York and Pennsylvania. The press release did not hide the ambition. It put it right in the headline, calling the result the largest John Deere dealer in the Northeast. The deal was announced with a quote from Leighton Grisette, a principal at Argonne Capital. Then look south to Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, where one of the largest John Deere agriculture and turf groups in the country operates under the friendly name United Ag and Turf. That group is owned by a holding company, Fernandez Holdings, together with its own management, 2 levels removed from the families whose names those stores once carried. And if you are telling yourself this is a story from 2017 that already ran its course, look at the calendar, because it is happening this month. RDO Equipment, a dealer founded by the Offutt family in Fargo, North Dakota, and now itself one of the largest Deere dealers in the entire country, has signed a definitive agreement to take over True North Equipment's John Deere agriculture locations across North Dakota and Minnesota. True North goes back a long way. It traces its roots to 1897 in Grafton, North Dakota, more than a century of one family's name on the door. The deal is set to close on August 3, 2026. The signatures are going on that paperwork this month, while outside groups keep working their way down the list of the family dealers that are still left to buy. And it is not the first time RDO has done this. At the end of 2023, it had already absorbed Hanan Equipment's construction locations across Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho. Now, to be fair about all of it, none of this is hidden, and every one of these deals was announced out in the open. The filings are public. And a bigger dealer group is not by default a worse one for the person buying the tractor. Scale can mean more machines sitting in inventory, more locations with an open service bay, a parts department that can find your part on the shelf, and weekend hours that a 2-person family store could never afford to keep. That is the honest case for consolidation, and the companies making it are not wrong to make it. But scale does one more thing, and that one thing never makes it into the press release. Now work out what all of that consolidation does to you, in the plainest terms. It comes down to 2 numbers, from 2 different places. Remember the 82 ownership groups behind 1,480 Deere locations across North America, from that 2024 report. And from a different source entirely, the public interest group USPRG, in its 2022 report, found that better than 8 in 10 of Deere's locations already sat inside a chain of 7 stores or more. Take the PIRG figure as its own estimate, since it came from PIRG and not from Deere. And PIRG found something plainer and worse. Many farmers now have just one John Deere chain near them that will service the brand at all, close enough to matter. And reaching another can mean a long drive. So stand back on that lot and count. When one company owns every John Deere store within driving distance of your county, count the number of places you can walk into and ask for a competing price on the exact same machine. 3 storefronts that all answer to the same parent company add up to a single price, offered in 3 different buildings. For as long as most farmers can remember, that number was 2 or 3. You drove to the next dealer down the highway, and you made them beat the first man's quote. And that pressure is the only reason the first quote was ever sharp. Today, if that next dealer answers to the same owner as the first, that is not a second quote. It is the same quote, printed on a second sheet of paper. So the question in the title of this video answers itself. Who owns your dealer now? Is the whole reason the price on the lot no longer moves the way it did when your father bought his. So here is the part you can use the next time you're standing on that lot with the pen in your hand. Before you sign for a machine that costs as much as a good used pickup, ask the salesman one plain question. Ask who owns this dealership and how many stores that owner runs. Then take the dealer you were counting on for leverage, the one an hour up the road, and find out whether it answers to that same owner. If it does, the competing quote you are going to lean on is not competing at all, and you will need to go find one that is from a separate, independent group, or from a different color of tractor altogether. None of this makes the machine on the lot a bad machine. It can be a good tractor at a fair price on the same afternoon. But a fair price only holds for as long as somebody down the road can still undercut it. And in more counties, there is no longer anybody down the road to do it. The sign over the door is the last thing to change hands. By the time it does, the decision that set your price was made years before, in an office you will never see, by people whose names are not on the building and never will be. So before you trust the name on the sign, make them tell you who is standing behind it.